Imagine waking up one morning to find that most nations are already heavily reliant on China. How could this happen? At first glance, China might seem like just an economic powerhouse, producing smartphones and clothing. But in reality, Beijing's strategy runs far deeper and more complex than many realize. Stay with me until the end, and you'll discover how China's covert tactics could reshape your world, influencing how we live, work, and interact with technology. Today, China is no longer merely a global manufacturing hub. It has surpassed the United States as the world's largest economy in terms of purchasing power. Yet, this is only part of the story. Imagine a country gradually acquiring control over vital resources and influence across the globe. Many nations have already fallen into China's trap through its Belt and Road Initiative, a program that appears beneficial on the surface. China invests in building roads, ports, and infrastructure, creating the illusion of development. However, the real catch lies in the enormous loans it extends to poorer countries, loans that are often impossible for them to repay. When debts become unmanageable, China steps in to seize strategic assets, effectively buying influence and power. For instance, Sri Lanka was unable to repay its debts and was compelled to hand over a crucial seaport to China for 99 years. This pattern isn't isolated. Dozens of countries across Africa and Asia have found themselves ensnared in this debt trap. Another critical aspect of China's expanding influence is its advancements in artificial intelligence. Beijing invests billions into AI development and has already become a global leader in this field. Many nations rely on Chinese AI technologies for security, urban management, and healthcare. The problem arises when dependence on Chinese AI grants Beijing access to vast amounts of data and the ability to control key systems in other countries. AI isn't just a technological breakthrough. It's a new form of global influence. China's long-term goal isn't merely economic dominance, but creating dependencies that turn nations into economic and technological vassals. What appears as aid is, in fact, a subtle form of domination. China is also constructing digital networks worldwide, gaining control over global communications. Have you ever wondered how the internet functions? It might seem like Wi-Fi and mobile signals are everywhere, but most of the world's data travels through undersea cables connecting continents. And here's the startling truth. China already controls over 70% of these submarine cables. If Beijing decided to cut these links, it could effectively shut down the internet in vast regions of the world. Recognizing the importance of technology's future, China is actively building a global digital infrastructure, often called the Digital Silk Road, under the guise of improving internet access. Through these initiatives, China gains access to critical infrastructure, consolidating its influence and control. The question remains, what happens if they decide to turn off the digital tap? The world's interconnected systems could be vulnerable to manipulation or disruption, all under the guise of development and partnership. This concern extends beyond the realm of the internet alone. Imagine that Huawei's equipment is now present in nearly every country, from Europe to Africa. Yet few realize that such technology can be used to monitor data. Governments worldwide are increasingly worried that China, through Huawei, might be spying on millions of people. Who knows? Perhaps someone is watching you right now through your own devices. Many share the fear that China could be controlling our information. For instance, in Africa, countries like Kenya and Ethiopia adopted Huawei's equipment because it was more affordable than competitors. But the true cost of these technologies goes far beyond money. It involves the security of millions of people's data. China's digital influence extends well beyond internet infrastructure and mobile networks. The country actively develops and promotes smart city technologies, exporting surveillance systems, AI-powered cameras, and facial recognition tools to dozens of nations worldwide. One notable example is Huawei's Safe City Surveillance System, now operational in over 100 cities, including several in Africa and Latin America. These systems employ cameras capable of tracking individuals' movements in real time. In Serbia, for example, a Chinese surveillance network was installed in Belgrade as part of efforts to enhance public safety. Yet, many fear such systems could be exploited for civilian surveillance or to suppress protests. Concerns grow that data collected by these cameras might fall into Chinese companies' hands and ultimately into the Chinese government's control. Another critical aspect is China's advancement in 5G technology. Companies like Huawei and ZTE have built extensive 5G infrastructure across the globe. The rollout of 5G promises new levels of control, enabling management of smart homes, factories, and entire cities. If a country adopts Chinese 5G technology, it potentially grants China access to sensitive data and the ability to influence critical systems, including security and infrastructure. For example, in 2020, the United Kingdom, despite successfully deploying 5G with Huawei's help, decided to phase out their equipment by 2027 amid security concerns. The UK aimed to replace all Huawei components, fearing that user data could be accessed by the Chinese government. China is constructing not just internet networks, but an entire digital empire capable of monitoring communications and data across many nations. Equipment that appears affordable and convenient could become a tool for espionage and control over vital infrastructure. Now, consider this. If China already controls a significant portion of the internet and 5G technology, what might they be capable of tomorrow? Write your comments below. Did you know that China's influence extends far beyond factories and industries? The country employs subtle yet powerful strategies to control entire nations by acquiring vital resources, land, and companies, often unnoticed by the global community. Take Australia as an example. Chinese investors already own approximately 14% of all agricultural land there. This is significant because as food becomes scarcer and more valuable in the future, these holdings will grant China substantial leverage over global food supplies. Instead of overt military conquest, China quietly secures key resources and assets that make other nations dependent on them. Many farmers, when selling their land, did not realize they were handing over control of entire economic sectors to a foreign power. Even more startling is China's dominance over more than half of the world's production of rare earth metals, crucial components for manufacturing smartphones, computers, and military equipment. Without these metals, modern economies would collapse, and if China suddenly ceased their exports, countless industries worldwide would grind to a halt. Another aspect of China's strategic expansion is its aggressive acquisition of foreign companies. Chinese firms now hold significant stakes in well-known corporations such as Volvo and Borelli. This means China influences not only automotive and tire manufacturing, but also technological development in these sectors. For instance, in Dve Tisuchi Deset, the Chinese automaker Geely purchased the Swedish brand Volvo, gaining access to advanced European automotive technologies. Since then, Volvo has pushed forward with electric vehicles, positioning China as a leader in the electric car market. Similarly, in 2017, China's state-owned chemical giant ChemChina acquired the Swiss agrochemical company Syngenta, a deal valued at over $30 billion. This purchase provided China with cutting-edge agricultural technologies and control over seeds, pesticides, and fertilizers, allowing them to influence global food supply chains strategically. Through such acquisitions, China creates dependencies that could one day turn against other nations. The modern economy relies heavily on rare earth metals, essential for everything from smartphones to aircraft, and these are under Chinese control. This dependence places the world in a technological trap, vulnerable to supply disruptions. Now consider what might happen if China decided to cut off these critical resources. The consequences would be catastrophic for global industries and economies. Furthermore, China is not only expanding economically but also militarily. The country is actively building military bases in the South China Sea, including artificial islands designed explicitly for military deployment. These man-made territories are part of a broader strategy to project power and secure influence in the region, often unnoticed by the international community. While many perceive threats to global stability as distant or abstract, China's dual approach, economic dominance combined with military buildup, is happening right under our noses. Its actions today could shape the future of global power dynamics in profound and unforeseen ways. China is actively establishing new military installations aimed at dominating vital maritime routes, a development that alarms many nations. These artificial islands have already transformed into fully operational military bases, equipped with missile systems, aircraft, and naval vessels. While Beijing claims these territories as its own, countries like the Philippines and Vietnam also assert sovereignty over these waters, fueling regional tensions. As a result, the geopolitical climate grows increasingly volatile, with the risk of conflict escalating daily. In response, the United States and its allies are intensifying military exercises across the region, reflecting the growing threat of a potential confrontation with China. Such drills are no longer mere demonstrations. They underscore the real possibility of hostilities erupting suddenly. Should a conflict occur, its repercussions would resonate globally, affecting economies and security worldwide. China's military strength is expanding not only through the construction of new bases, but also via significant increases in defense spending. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, China allocates approximately $250 billion annually to its military, making it the second largest military spender after the United States. In comparison, countries like Russia and India each spend around $60 billion per year on defense. Over time, China continues to boost its military budget, focusing on modernizing its armed forces and developing advanced weaponry. Despite a primary emphasis on land and air forces, China has already amassed the world's largest navy by the number of ships. By 2020, it operated more than 350 vessels and submarines, surpassing the United States, which had about 300. Additionally, China is strengthening its influence through strategic military partnerships, notably with Russia. Joint exercises have become routine, spanning regions from the Pacific to the Arctic, demonstrating coordinated military capabilities that could shift regional power balances. In 2021, China and Russia conducted joint naval drills in the Sea of Japan, raising concerns among the United States and its Asian allies, including Japan and South Korea. These exercises serve as a clear display of their combined military strength and ability to operate in key strategic areas. Furthermore, China is expanding its nuclear arsenal rapidly. In 2021, the Pentagon reported that China was constructing over 100 new missile silos, indicating a swift push to increase its nuclear capabilities. Currently, estimates suggest China possesses around 350 nuclear warheads, a figure steadily rising, narrowing the gap with the United States and Russia, which each hold thousands. China is also establishing new military bases directly at sea, granting it strategic leverage over critical trade routes and maritime choke points. This maritime expansion enhances China's ability to project power and control key global shipping lanes. As these developments unfold, the likelihood of military clashes involving the United States and its allies grows, raising the specter of a broader conflict. Consider the implications. If such a war were to ignite, its impact would be felt worldwide, potentially reshaping international stability, economic systems, and security architectures. The evolving military landscape underscores the urgent need for diplomatic efforts to prevent a crisis that could have catastrophic consequences for the entire planet. China has already demonstrated its growing influence across the globe, leveraging economic power, technological advancements, and military strength. Yet the pressing question remains: what lies ahead? Could it be that within a decade, the world might fall entirely under Beijing's sway? Today, numerous nations have taken substantial loans from China, unwittingly ensnaring themselves in debt traps. These countries often sign unfavorable agreements, unaware that they are gradually losing control over their territories and economies. China responds by seizing vital assets, ports, power plants, and strategic infrastructure, further consolidating its dominance. If this pattern persists in a few years, these nations risk becoming effectively dependent, compelled to comply with Chinese demands and relinquish sovereignty. But the challenge extends beyond territorial control. China is pioneering its own digital currency, the digital yuan, which could disrupt the existing global financial system rooted in the dollar. Should the digital yuan become the dominant currency worldwide, many countries might find themselves even more economically intertwined with China. Imagine a world where the Chinese digital currency replaces the dollar as the primary medium of international trade. Such a shift could dramatically reshape global power dynamics. Through debt agreements and strategic investments, China could dominate weaker economies, stripping them of independence and influence. The introduction of the digital yuan threatens to undermine the entire global financial architecture, making the planet increasingly reliant on Chinese economic stability and technological infrastructure. The critical question is, if the world continues down this path of economic and digital dependence on China, what future awaits us? China has already secured significant global influence, and this trend is expected to intensify over the coming decades. Whether through economic pressure via loans, control of strategic assets, influence over digital infrastructure, or expansion through ecological and military initiatives, China aims to solidify its leadership on the world stage. Many developing nations are at risk of becoming completely dependent on China, economically, technologically, and politically. This scenario calls for heightened vigilance from the international community. Without effective measures to curb this dependency, the global balance of power could shift dramatically within the next 20 years, favoring Beijing. A future where China controls key technologies, financial systems, and vital resources may arrive sooner than many anticipate. To prevent becoming mere pawns in this emerging order, it is crucial to consider how to safeguard our data and infrastructure. Reflect on these issues, share your thoughts, and consider what steps can be taken to protect our sovereignty in an increasingly interconnected world.